Welcome to the third component of part 1 of this course, in which we will dig into the topic of imagery. Now, it's likely this skill, the skill of drawing, that you first think of when you think of visual note-taking. But I wanted to get a couple of other skills under our belt first, the skills of text and layout, to show you that there are other elements in addition to drawing that give visual note-taking its power. So now that you've seen what you can do with text and layout, let's add imagery to the mix. In this video, I will show you the big picture of imagery within the world of visual note-taking. I will also show you why each one of you can learn to draw, and I will outline how you'll go about building your imagery skills throughout the rest of this module. Let's get into it. Let's start with a quick look at the brain. Now, I'm not going to dig deep into neuroscience in this video, but I do want to point out one thing. Our brain reacts differently when we look at a word compared to when we look at an image. When you look at a word, a particular set of neurons fire in your brain. When you look at an image of the thing that that word describes, a different neural network lights up. Now, undoubtedly, there will be some overlap between those two networks, but the power of visual note-taking is that we are tapping into the brain's visual memory and its ability to process visual information, two things that it is well trained to do. So, by incorporating imagery into your note-taking process, you're tapping into a larger portion of your brain. But you probably already knew that. You're here after all, so let's now talk about how to do it. Here is my approach to drawing. If you can write by hand, which you should be able to do now after our second module, then you can draw. When you write by hand, all you are doing is combining straight lines and curved lines to make an object that you and others recognize. In this case, an A, a B, a C, or a D. Drawing simple objects is no different. The lines might occasionally be longer and the curves a bit different than what you're used to, but the basics are the same. And by the end of this module, you will have plenty of simple objects that you know how to draw and can draw with confidence, just as you have a number of letters that you know how to write and can write with confidence. To help you get more comfortable making different types of marks on the page, here is a 3-step warm-up process that I like to go through before any visual note-taking session. In the first step, I draw a series of shapes, starting with circles in the middle and then moving radially outward as I transition to clouds, then some curved triangles, then some curved lines, and finally some curved rectangular looking things. In addition to warming up my hand, this step helps me get comfortable making new types of shapes. Shapes different than what you see in the alphabet, but still just composed of straight lines and curved lines. That alphabet is what I move to in step 2. I work all the way through it, usually with my core font. But if you've got multiple fonts that you use, then you can switch up which one you warm up with. And you could even use this warm up as a way to solidify your use of a new font that you've been working on. In the third step, I draw a few recognizable images. Nothing fancy here, just a few elements from my visual vocabulary, something that I'll help you to build in the next lesson. Here too, you have a chance to practice and solidify your ability to draw particular objects without any stress, since your primary purpose here is simply to warm up. So give that warm-up routine a try the next time you have some notes to take, and feel free to tweak it in a way that better meets your needs. We will dig into more specific drawing techniques and even how to draw specific objects in future videos. But first, let's take a step back and look at imagery from a broader perspective. Any image that you look at falls somewhere along the spectrum from abstract to realistic. Written text is an image, one that falls far on the abstract side of this spectrum. An icon is much less abstract because the form that an icon takes often corresponds to a physical object, even though that object is represented in a very simplified form. To the right of the icon is something I'm going to call a scene, which could simply be a combination of multiple icons that adds a bit more specificity to the situation being depicted. A step up from a scene would be an illustration, where the thing being drawn is represented in a much more realistic and potentially artistic way. One step further and we get to a photograph, which is the most realistic form of a static image. What we'll be focusing on in this course on visual note-taking are icons and scenes. We won't go as far as illustrations, but of course you're welcome to continue down that path if you're so inclined. By applying simple drawing techniques toward the creation of icons and scenes, we'll be accessing those visual networks of the brain in the most efficient way. I want to point out here that there are some times when abstract imagery will suit your needs, and other times when realistic imagery will do the job better. What abstract imagery does is leave room for interpretation, which could be exactly what you're looking for, depending on what you're doing with your notes. Realistic imagery, on the other hand, provides specificity as an anchor. With more detail than realistic images, you move away from the vagueness of words and can allow for the concreteness of an image to anchor the ideas that you're exploring or sharing with others. For those reasons, icons are useful as a quick reference to a particular idea or object, while scenes, with their added level of detail and specificity, are useful for expressing or exploring a particular situation. That breakdown should help you to decide when to build up a scene and when a simple icon will do just fine. So that's a big picture overview of the role that imagery plays in the world of visual note-taking. Here's how you will build and apply your imagery skills throughout the rest of this module. In the next lesson, you'll learn about how to build your own visual vocabulary. There, we will focus specifically on building up a set of simply drawn icons that you can pull out with ease and use at any time. Then we'll look specifically at how to draw people and faces, and why those drawn elements within your notes are particularly powerful. We'll follow that up with a look at how to build those scenes that I mentioned earlier, and the worlds that open up to you as a result. And as we did in the previous module, we will end this one with a revisit of the 7 core ideas of the verbal to visual mindset, and connect those ideas to the development of your imagery skills. I will leave you with an optional follow-up activity of grabbing your camera or a smartphone and going out on a walk and taking pictures of anything that catches your eye. You will be able to use those photos in some skill-building activities to come. I will see you in the next video.